Hello and welcome to the CSN3M Mindset Monday podcast. I'm Andrew Wade with Case Specific Nutrition. On this channel, we focus on the 3 M's: mindsets, myth busting, and mentoring, all as they pertain to health and nutrition. Our podcast is brought to you by Case Specific Meal Prep, our very own in-house meal prep and delivery service. We serve chef-inspired and dietitian-approved meals straight to your door every week. Make sure you check out our meal offerings as well as our snack offerings on csnppgh.com. Place your orders by Thursday at noon so you can start your week right with fresh meals at your door on Sunday. Before we dig into today's podcast, I want to make sure you take a moment and hit subscribe to this channel. We'd really appreciate it if you'd like this video and share it with a friend, family, or loved one so that they too can get help on their health and wellness journey. Be sure you hashtag spread the health so that you can do your part in helping us grow the health and wellness of Case Specific Nutrition. Today's episode is a personal favorite. This one's going to be a little bit of a shout out to all my fellow finance nerds out there. So bear with me as I try and do a really cheesy, but what I think is an effective analogy on how we think about food and how we think about really our overall life habits and self-care. So bear with me. We've got the concept of energy lending versus energy investing. And what I present to you is sort of what we'll call the stereotypical hardworking American as the energy lended individual. That's the person that doesn't sleep enough, that tends to rely on caffeine in the morning and in the afternoon as a way to just get through the day. The person that's kind of sugar seeking is looking for those quick snacks throughout the day. Really looking for those quick pick-me-ups, might not have actual meals planned, and so has to grab this at lunch and has to find this as a snack. That is really a way that I would call it energy debt, right? So what's happening there is that you're basically borrowing energy, right? You're looking for that quick pick-me-up, that short-term, that instant cash now, so to speak. Locally, we have a couple of those cash lenders that, say, call us if you need cash now. Well, those are the ones that also give you these absurd interest rates that end up sending you into further debt because you can never actually pay it off. Same kind of thing here. The version of you that's not sleeping, that's relying on caffeine and is relying on that big sugar boost to get through your day, you're going to find that it's harder and harder and harder to catch up. You're just going to get further and further into debt until you're completely burnt out. And more than likely, your body and your overall health is going to start to show that in the form of increased illness, more likelihood of getting sick, more likely of getting injured, less ability to do things, and even the mental side of things, seeing that sort of depressed state that can come into play where you just feel lethargic and sort of like you really don't want to do anything. And we can see how this can create a vicious cycle of really what we call health debt over time. The alternative, right? The energy investing side of things. That's really what we'd look at as someone who's prioritizing their sleep, who's making time to move their body physically in some way, and is making time to eat quality meals that are enjoyable and meals that contribute to all 3 types of satisfaction, which we talked about in our last episode, that physical, that mental, and that emotional satisfaction. A way to think about that is that's like the auto withdrawal that comes out of your paycheck for your retirement account. You really, as you get better at it, as you get used to it, you really don't even notice these things taking up time. So you don't notice that your exercise takes up time. You don't notice that your preparation and planning of meals takes up time. You're not complaining about the fact that sleep is a good use of your time. You make use of the time that remains because those things are there to support. But just like that money that accumulates in your 401k, so too, these habits accumulate and they compound, right? And they start to yield interest. So instead of you having interest working against you in the form of debt, you now have interest working for you in the form of increased energy, improved mood, improved vitality, an overall positive life. So where the debt can create that vicious cycle, we have this concept of good quality habits compounding, creating interest, and creating what I like to call a prolific cycle, a cycle that builds on itself. And so something that I want to sort of take away and make sure we think about is when we think about certain symptoms of the two, right? So when we look at that energy lending or that energy debt, one of the most common symptoms of debt is cravings. So you'll get people that say, oh my God, I was craving this, or I was craving chocolate, or I wanted this so bad. A lot of times that's your body begging for fuel and begging for energy, but that's also oftentimes a sign of burnout. A lot of times when we're craving something like sugar, sugar makes us happy. It spikes our dopamine in the brain, and it gives us that momentary feeling of, right? And so when we're craving that, that's a way of saying that our habits have been sending us in sort of this negative downward trend, and we're getting burnt out. And so a thing to think about for yourself is if you find yourself having cravings, what you might want to start thinking about is, oh man, this is a symptom of debt. And this is a sign of my body trying to collect interest on that debt. And we can see where that can happen, because what happens is when you start to crave things, we often crave more and more and more as the debt gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And so whether it's the initial caffeine that started off as some coffee in the morning now becomes a pot of coffee and 2 energy drinks throughout the day, whether it's the start where it started off as just like a little sweet treat in the afternoon and is now a constant craving for sugar, and you're grazing on Swedish fish and chocolate chips and M&Ms throughout the day to get that latest fix. We can hear where this is accumulating. These cravings get bigger and bigger as that energy debt gets bigger and bigger. So how do we get out of debt? Right? That's the big question. Many of you listening are probably in debt, and it becomes just like an investment reality. How can I save for the future when I have this massive debt that I'm trying to deal with? The good news is, in this case, saving for the future in the form of good quality habits actually pays off the debt. And so reprioritizing your sleep, because it's energy building, because it's energy yielding, will allow you to escape that sleep debt and get to a point where you now actually have an energy surplus. And you'll start to notice that because you'll start to feel more energetic. If we shift away from this craving, debt, sugar-seeking snack scenario, right? Now all of a sudden we're gonna see, if we replace it with good quality meals, that's going to interrupt that process. Instead of having some quick fix sugar that gives us a spike and then a big crash, which asks for another spike an hour later, you get a good quality meal that deals with the crash, but deals with it in a way that's very, very calm and centering. So instead of this volatile, energy-related system, we are now basically streamlining and flatlining it. And so we can see where real quality meals, taking the time to actually eat a breakfast in the day, making plans to know what lunch is and where it's coming from, whether you're eating it at home, whether you're packing it, or whether you're picking it up somewhere. If you know what you're getting in advance, that's one less decision you have to make right there in the moment. And that's also an opportunity to set yourself up to have a good decision that fuels and fills your body, and once again, gives you those 3 types of satisfaction that are so important. So we can disrupt our sugar-seeking debt cycle with good quality meals. We can interrupt our sleep-deprived, caffeine-obsessed, and caffeine-reliant selves by reprioritizing sleep. And then the final boost, right, that final contribution to your retirement account of energy and wellness is going to be that movement. Taking time each day, whether it's for a random walk to clear your head, whether it's some recreation with a friend or a family member, whether it's chasing around your little kid when you get home, whether it's a formal exercise routine, whether it's an exercise class, whether in person or virtually, whatever it is that's meant to be for you, that time is personal time, right? That's that time that's set aside to improve yourself, your health, your wellness. And more importantly, exercise is one of the only things that spikes all 4 neurotransmitters in our brain. And so our dopamine, our oxytocin, our serotonin, and our endorphins. Those are the 4 neurotransmitters that make us happy in our mind. They're what give us that mood boost. Exercise is one of the only things that spikes all 4. And so some daily movement, right, getting a little bit out of breath, moving your body, stretching out each day is going to be one of those contributions that helps reverse that debt cycle and gets you set up to build forward and feel a whole lot better over time. So there you have it. Stop accumulating energy debt and let's start investing in our health and wellness like we invest in our retirement. I hope you found today's episode enjoyable. I hope all the finance nerds out there enjoyed it and I didn't misrepresent too badly. As always, we thank you for being a part of our CSN community. For more content, please check us out, Case Specific Nutrition, on all social media. You can check our website out, casespecificnutrition.com. And as always, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to share this podcast with a friend or loved one. And we will see you next week with more wellness tips and advice.